anyways, I went to an all-girls school, and we had to wear skirts.
Which is completely up your alley because at this point you've been practicing for a long time wearing girly clothes.
Yeah, it was great. I was like, I do not like this.
So you're being forced to wear
Yeah,
skirts.
skirts, this uniform, which we had uniforms in the school I went to, but
And
it
had
wasn't
you
skirt.
dated any girls yet? Like,
No.
had you? Okay, so this is still like a
Yeah.
deep-seated thing in
Yeah.
you. You're not sharing this with anybody,
No.
even though it probably, like the tomboy and how you're like carrying yourself is starting to like
Oh, it's starting to show.
show.
Like, my sister knew.
Yeah,
My sister
like you don't have
knew.
to tell certain people. They're
Yeah.
like something's
My
different.
sister didn't talk about it, but she knew.
Yeah. Welcome to Baking and Breaking Bread. My name is Alyssa, and I have the awesome opportunity to share a little bit of the couch with a friend of mine that I met at Recovery Church. You go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name's Ashlee, and I am a grateful believer of Jesus Christ. But I met Alyssa, I don't know, what would you say? How many months ago?
I don't know, 6 to 8. Like it's been.
Yeah, it's been a while. Her and her husband are leaders at the West Palm Beach Recovery Campus, and I met one of the other leaders, and they invited me, and I have literally just fell in love with that location and the leaders in that, and they have made me feel like family. And yeah, I'm just excited to jump on this podcast and tell y'all what Jesus has done in my life.
And I can't wait. And I can't wait. So, yeah, Ashlee, tell us however you want to go into your story. I just want you to feel comfortable. So, wherever you kind of want to start, a little bit of background, how you grew up, where you grew up.
Okay. So I come from Savannah, Georgia, but I grew up in a little town called Effingham County. It's like the tri-county of like Savannah. My mom raised me and my brother and my sister. She was a single parent. When I was younger, though, I do remember my dad getting me every other weekend. Me and my brother also, we have the same mom and dad, and my sister has a different dad. But in the household that I grew up in, we didn't look at it that way. We were just like whole siblings, you know?
Yeah.
So
Everybody beat each other up. Everybody
yeah. Everybody was mean to each other.
Yeah. Typical sibling stuff, sure.
Yeah, I was the baby in the household, so they were all jealous of me.
Of course,
because
got away with
I didn't have to do the chores or anything like that. Mom just let me do what I wanted. That's funny. But yeah, my mom raised the three of us. She did the best that she knew how to. My biological father, though, would get me every other weekend, and I had 3 half siblings that lived over there. I had 3 brothers, and they had a different mom, and my stepmom actually was from New Zealand. She come down here and did nursing schooling, and my dad was an RN, so that's how they met, and they had 3 beautiful boys. I love my half brothers. And so I remember going over there, but I didn't really feel like I belonged in that household. I was the only girl. There was just tension. I remember being a lot of tension. Well, by the age of 2 or 3, that's what my mom said. For the longest time, I thought it was like 5 years old because I remembered it. And usually, kids don't remember things from that far back.
Right.
I was sexually abused. And there was things that were occurring that my mom, I would, have where I would be in the bed up till I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
But during that, I remember going and having all these tests ran, and they figured out what was going on, and my mom went after my father with DFACS, which is Child Protective Services. And he no longer wanted me anymore every other weekend. And I didn't understand why. And as a little girl, it's really important, significant that we have a father.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, I remember my dad, me picking up the phone and calling, and I remember him not wanting to see me. And my brother could go over there, but I wasn't allowed to. So there was like a time that I had no memory. It was like a memory gap. But I do remember me and my brother going to my dad's house. And
How old were you now?
I was 10.
Okay.
Let me back that up a little bit. So my mom was married to a guy named Dennis, and he was the guy that took me fishing and took me hunting, and he drove big trucks. So I would go travel with him in these big trucks, and he was that father figure that did those things with me. And at the age of 5, we were going on vacation to Dollywood. I remember this like it was yesterday. And we had American Pit Bull dog, and she had puppies. And he was taking the puppies to his aunt's house, which was my Aunt Sandra. And they said when he got to the railroad tracks, he bent down to get something. That's what I don't know how
Police report or something.
The police report or something like that. And he accidentally had his foot on the gas instead of the brake and was on the railroad tracks, and a train clipped him and killed him. So I remember that being very a hard time. My mom was going through it. She had just lost her husband. I remember there was times I would cry, and she would tell me to quit crying. So there was just like an emotional neglect there.
Yeah. And you're still 10 at this point, like dealing with emotions, not knowing what to do with them. Like, you're young. You're really young.
My biological father, when we went and knocked on his door that day, that some other person answered the door and was like, can I help y'all? And we're like, we're looking for Chris. You know, that's my dad's name. And they said he doesn't live here anymore. He moved to New Zealand. So I'm 10 years old. And I don't remember any emotions that I had felt in that. I think at that point in time, I kind of was just like, it was like null and void. Like, I just completely was like, okay, whatever, you know? And I felt very emotionally neglected from my mother at this point in time, too. It was like she didn't know even how to deal with this, you know? Yeah. I could only imagine. Like, I probably wouldn't know what to do either.
Sure.
I do remember being in a lot of therapy, though, as a kid. I remember the therapist's faces, but I don't remember what we actually worked on. Sure. I can't remember none of that. After that, my mom brought us up in church, too. We grew up Pentecostal, and then went to Church of God, and my grandmother had gotten sick, and we moved I grew up in Effingham County, but we actually lived out in Brooklyn, Georgia for a long time. And my grandma started getting sick, so we moved to Effingham County, and that was the 3rd grade. I don't even know, how old are we in the 3rd grade?
9 or 10.
9 or 10?
Yeah.
Okay, but we moved to Effingham County, and my grandma got sick, and she wound up passing away, so that was like, it was like, 5 and then 10. My mom lost her husband 5 years ago, and then she loses her mom. Yeah. It was just a very, very like rough patch and all of that. So my mom, we went to Monterey Park Church of God in Effingham County, and we had a pastor. His name was Brother Garland, and that man, like, I remember he had like this like gray like curly hair, and he was like preaching, and would like shake. He'd get like all hyped up, and he would like run up and down the stage, and It was just very like upbeat. I remember people like praying in tongues, falling out in the spirit. Like, that's the environment I grew up in. And I think there was like some havoc that happened in the church, and but then I started going to a church called Bloomingdale Alliance, and I don't even really know what the Alliance Church stands for, like but I know they preach the gospel, and it was a lot more calmer. Like, the worship wasn't so intense, but I was real heavy involved in like Bible school and
like Sunday school,
stuff like it. Yeah, and there was a lady there named Kendra Collins, and she was like my spiritual mom. She was like a godmother to me, and this lady, it was like somebody that God placed in my life to like love on me. And she's seen where I was at. She could see the things that I was like going through. But I ended up going to like the youth there, and like we grew up really poor. So when I was a kid, I thought that we there was like times where I remember my mom pouring like pots of hot water in the bathtub. I thought she was trying to just heat the, like, I don't know, I thought it was just really cold outside. But it's because we had no electricity and she had a gas stove.
Wow.
So she was heating the water up for us to give us a hot bath.
Wow.
I remember going and staying like a week over at the Grassy's house, and it was like this family that had like money, like had four-wheelers and dirt bikes and like boats and jet skis, and I got to do all these like exciting things that I didn't get to do at home. And they were like my family. I'd have Christmases and stuff over there, and we would go out on the boat every Saturday. And growing up, I had no idea why I stayed over there all the time. I just thought that, I mean, I wanted to be over there. Obviously, I had all the things I ever wanted as a kid.
Of course.
But growing up now, I realized it was because the electricity was cut off.
Wow.
And that lady and their family took us in as their own.
Did they go to your church?
They would show up to Bloomingdale Alliance.
How did you know the Grassies? How did that family get involved in your family's life?
My brother knew them.
Okay.
It was like me and my brother's like spot we would go to.
And where did you meet them? From school or?
I don't remember. That's a memory I can't even.
Interesting.
I
just
idea.
wondered if it was like a church family that like really just saw your mom and your family and wanted to care for you guys in that season.
I have no idea.
Okay.
That'd be like that'd be like a question I'd have to ask my mom.
Yeah.
Maybe
like how do I know the Grassies? Yeah.
Chandler though, their daughter was like my best friend. Okay. And I actually started getting her to go to like we would go to like worship nights and stuff like that at Monterey Park Church of God. They ended up another pastor took over, and I can't remember what they changed the name of the church to, but we would go there for like worship nights, and then she would come with me to Bloomingdale Alliance and stuff like that. And Bloomingdale Alliance, man, that church right there was very significant to me. That was I would play upwards basketball for them. We would go on like youth trips. We would go to summer camp. It was like where I got to first experience my first time tubing from the back of the boat. First time being able to go, we would go to Winterfest, where I got to snow ski for the first time and snowboard.
Yeah.
Big conferences. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of teenagers like filled in a like stadium of like nights and nights of like worship.
That's awesome. And what years are these? Like you're in youth? So
I was like in youth.
So 14, 15.
Maybe it was like 12.
Okay.
13.
So middle school youth. So you're a little younger. Okay.
But something like happened between all of that. I remember that I was like a really big Jesus freak. I love some JC. And I talked about JC a lot. And there was a time where, you know, my friends from school and stuff like that started really bullying me about this. And I couldn't understand it. I would cry, and I'm like, and I remember asking my mom, I said, why doesn't nobody like me? What's wrong with me? And she was just, I remember her telling me like, that's not true. It's just not true. And I started to get really like angry with God, because nobody broke down like the persecution of like how the world would see me. Like I didn't know that. I just was a like happy, joyous like kid. The rule was growing up in my household was like when I got off the bus, I would change clothes and I could ride my bicycle anywhere in the neighborhood and go hang out with whoever I wanted to. And I started like hanging out with kids closer around me. Started like not really going over to the Grassies as much, and started hanging out with like different kids in the neighborhood. And I remember, I think I was like 13, 14, something like that. And there was this house down the street, and I started feeling kind of more accepted with this crowd of people. I didn't talk about Jesus as much. I just like kind of like became like a chameleon in this like area. And I went over to the house one day, and they were like shaking a bottle, and what that is, they were making meth. That was the first time I'd ever tried methamphetamines.
Did you know they did drugs?
Yeah.
So it's like you just were kind of like compromising even like I won't talk about this. They seem cool. They like me. So I'm like willing just to kind of hang out. But like over time, being in that environment normalized stuff for you.
Yeah. And I felt very accepted.
Yeah.
I didn't feel judged. And I noticed at that age too, like I started to like women. I knew I liked women, but I did not know to the degree or what it was that I was feeling. Because I had an aunt growing up that had a sex change. And it was really weird. At a really young age, I knew that she was a female, but she had a beard and everything. And nobody spoke about it, but I like knew. Like I could discern that spirit at a very young age.
Wow.
And then it all came out, and I remember my family like saying, you know, they didn't love on her. They were very judgmental against her. And she was married for many and many years until she died to a woman, and they were very happy. And yeah, so I was like, okay, this is not talked about.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what I was feeling, and I had a lot of boyfriends, but it was like I wasn't doing anything with them. I might have like kissed them and stuff, but it was like didn't last very long. I was like, okay, next. Like, but what it was is I was dealing with a spirit of homosexuality.
Yeah.
I was hiding that. I was dealing with the trauma from the molestation, and that comes with all kind of slew of things, you know. And those people that I would like started getting high with, you know, I remember the first time like I tried that, and we like drank it. It was like shake. They would put it in these coffee filters, and you can make like a whole pitcher of sweet tea or a whole pitcher of coffee. And I drank like a whole cup full. And I was like, I asked my buddy, I said, hey, you got any sweet tea? He's like, yeah, I got a whole pitcher of it in the refrigerator. I honestly didn't know I was trying meth for the first time.
Wow.
He tricked me.
Wow.
So I drank a whole glass of sweet tea, and I stayed up for days. My mom worked at fast food, so she was like, when I get off the school bus, she'd be gone, and you know there would always be hot food on the table before when I get home from school. Like she's like, hey, there's food and da da da, but she was gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So she had no idea what was going on because she wasn't home.
Yeah.
She was doing what she needed to do to provide for her kids, and it scared me. I was like, this is really potent. Like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that, but then I stopped doing that and ended up getting involved with some kids at school, and they would start, these people that I were hanging out with, they were in my neighborhood. So, you know, and everybody else didn't have much money, so that was like our form of fun. And that's when I stopped going over to the Grassies because there was things going on, and my friend Chandler was not having anything to do. Like, she could see me smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. She's like, what are you doing? And that's kind of like when that connection kind of broke.
Yeah.
But I started hanging out with friends from school, and I would get off of the school bus with them, and I would just, on Friday nights, and party with them all weekend long. So I'd get slam drunk and, you know, smoking weed and popping pills and whatever else I could get my hands on. And that happened for a really long time. And then 9th grade year, well, I would go to these parties too on the weekends there, and the cops would show up, and I found a thrill out of running from the police. I'm like, I'm hoping the cops come so I can like run. Like, I found a thrill out of that.
Like you were living like your own like video game or something.
I was like, oh, the show I can
I feel like everybody when you're young, you think you're so invincible. Like you just think like, I could take that person. I don't care. Fight me. Like I just think like there's no fear of death. There's like, you just do, I'm going to jump off this thing right now and I'm not going to get hurt. You know what I mean? Like you just don't think, like also your brain's not fully developed. You know what I mean? Like in those younger years. So you don't think fully of like the consequences or like how this could really turn out. Yeah. So anyway, just side note. It's just funny how like, anyway, you're saying that. I'm like, yeah, everybody thinks they're so like,
I don't know
tough.
why I thought that was fun, but it was like a thrill to me. Like I've always been an adrenaline person.
Yeah.
Like if it made me like fear, like I'm like, let's go. And I would like start hysterically laughing. Just, I don't know. Wild.
So this is now you're fast forward, you're how old? Because you're probably, you said you're smoking, you're hanging with neighborhood kids. You got to be.
The time frame is so cloudy.
So it's 12, 13. You're like kind of still in middle school?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am in middle school.
You're in middle
school. 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
Very young. After 8th grade, ninth grade year came, actually, in kindergarten, I was held back a year, so I was always a year behind in my classmates.
Okay.
Because with all of the molestation going on, my mother's husband passing away, my maturity level was not where it was supposed to be, so they thought it was a good idea to hold me back a year.
Okay.
So 9th grade year, like I said, we didn't have much money growing up, so my mom had a hard time like putting me in sports and keeping me in sports, and because she had to work full time, fast food, this, that, and the third. So it was really hard for her to, get me to where I needed to be. But
Yeah.
9th grade year, I think my nephew was born. My sister had a kid. She got pregnant in high school to my nephew, which has autism, severe autism. Like, I think he's like 17 now, and he's like mentally like 8. So he's like that's really severe. And my sister, being the age that she was, she did not know how to take on that kind of responsibility. So my mom took on full responsibility of him. And it kind of was like the time that I needed my mother most.
Right.
So it was all about him. And I think I was out there riding my bicycle and running the streets because I was looking for the love that I needed from my mother and my father, and neither of it was there. It's not only was I brought up in a broken home, I didn't have the emotional support from either parents. So I was a really broken kid. But by 9th grade year, I was outside at school playing football with the guys. I always enjoyed stuff like that. And a very big tomboy. And I remember I didn't like dressing like the other girls, and I felt very different. And I was like, there's no way any guys are going to like me like this. Like, I'm just not. They're probably going to cheat on me because I'm not feminine. I'm not none of this. And I was just like, and I really didn't care about none of that. I just wanted to have fun and whatever. But 9th grade year, I was outside playing football with the guys, and one of the coaches was like, hey, you should try out for the basketball team. And I was like, I'll never make the basketball team. I'll never make it. She's like, no, I'm telling you, try out. Just give it a shot. So I made the basketball team, and I was a shooting guard 9th grade year, and I actually got to play some games. So the potential was there, being that I never really was in sports, consistently. And for me to be able to play in a game was quite, blew my mind. And that became something I fell in love with really quick. Like, I wanted to be, go pro, and I had a few, people, mentors, that worked at the school. It's like, yo, there's been a lot of people in history that has been like you that didn't have the fundamentals that they needed, but if they put the work behind it, they could go really far. So that, stuck with me. But my dad called me, and that was the first time I heard from him since I was 10 years old. And he was like, hey. And I was like, hey. And he's like, it's your dad. And I got really, really excited. I was like, my dad. He was like, look, I'm wanting to come down for 2 weeks and come see you and your brother. He said, I'd like to come to some of your basketball practices and your games and just, try to spend some time with you. He come down, and he come to every one of my practices, came to a few of my games. Then he asked me if I wanted to go overseas to New Zealand for just a visit. And I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I went. I got there. I remember arriving in Auckland Airport. They stayed in Hamilton. And my brothers, my stepmom, and they all came and picked me up from the airport. And I was so excited. That was the longest flight I've ever flew in my life. It was 24 hours. I went from Savannah, Georgia airport to Seattle, Washington from Seattle, Washington, from LAX to LAX, and then from LAX it took me 13 hours straight, no stopping, to Auckland in New Zealand.
It's nuts.
Like, first time ever flying.
No. Have you ever flown since?
Yeah,
Okay.
I flew down here.
I'm just asking because I feel like that would have been such a trauma for me. I'd been like, I'm never
I was so
gonna
excited. Like, remember, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like,
to be on there. I feel like I would be trapped.
I was like, where am I going? Like, I get to LAX, and my dad had a friend that lived, I can't remember her name, but he had a friend down there. He's like, I'm gonna have her come pick you up. She took me to Manhattan Beach, and then she took me back to the airport. And then I flew into Auckland, and it was really dark outside. I don't remember if it was early morning, but like in New Zealand, like they're a day ahead of us. So
Yeah.
when we're awake, they're sleeping.
Uh-huh.
But they picked me up from the airport, and I was so happy.
So you felt like this was it. Like you think you're like kind of where you're supposed to be. Like almost like I'm reunited with my dad. This feels like home. This is like a new chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was so excited. I get there, and it's like I'm like 2 weeks in, and I was like, so when am I going back home? He said, well, actually, I want to ask you something. He's like, would you be willing to move and stay down here? He said, I don't plan on sending you back home. He said, I want you to stay and get your residency, get to know your brothers, and it was a lot at that age to understand really what was going on. I was leaving everything I knew. I'm in a foreign country, really young. I think I'm like 15 maybe.
Yeah.
But he took me like sightseeing, so we went like everywhere we went. I like snapped about 1,000 pictures. Like it was just green, like, oh, man, it was just so different. I don't know if you ever watched like Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit.
Long time ago.
But that's what it looks like out there. That's where it was filmed. It was actually filmed maybe like 30 minutes from my house or something like that.
Wow.
But it was really, really beautiful. And the food, like, it was so good. Like, the meat was rich.
Yeah.
Like, it tastes way different than it does over here.
Yeah.
And they all sat down every night. And, like, I grew up riding the school bus. So I wasn't used to being, like, transported to school in a car. Like, it was foreign to me. I was like, this is what rich people do. Like, that's what I always thought. I was like, this is what rich people do. I was like, I don't get the privilege of doing this. And my brothers played rugby. They were in sports their whole life. Very good athletes. My dad actually played rugby. And they would sit at the dinner table every night. And there was a mom, there was a dad, and then there was a seat for everybody. And it was Liam, Ethan, and Seamus. Those are my brothers' names. And I started getting very angry. I was like, why didn't I have this? Like, in my mind, growing up, my life was normal.
Yeah.
It was a norm to me. Even going over to Grassy's house, I was like, this is their family, you know? But this is how my family is. Like, it's normal. You know? Like, I had an understanding. But, like, when I seen what my dad had built with his wife and my 3 brothers, and I'm like, and then he took me away from my brothers, I became super, super angry. And there was a time that I remember screaming at my dad and talking about the molestation. He's like, that didn't happen. Because he didn't do it. One of my family members did under his care. And he's like, that didn't happen. And I explained the layout of the house. Where the kitchen was, where that bedroom was. And he was like, how do you know that? Like, I'm like 2-3 years old.
Wow.
He's like, how do you? I said, I remember. I visually can see. I can remember the oxygen tank that the person that did it to me. I can remember the breathing.
All of it.
I remember all of it. And he had to like hold me down on the ground because I was just like so angry.
Yeah.
Anyways, I went to an all-girls school, and we had to wear skirts.
Which is completely up your alley because at this point you've been practicing for a long time wearing girly clothes.
Yeah, it was great. I was like, I do not like this.
So you're being forced to wear skirts.
This uniform. Like, Which we had uniforms in the school I went to, but
And
it wasn't
had you
skirt.
dated any girls yet? Like,
No.
had you? Okay, so this is still like a
Yeah.
deep-seated thing in
Yeah.
you. You're not sharing this with anybody,
No.
even though it probably, like the tomboy and how you're like carrying yourself is starting to like
Oh, it's starting to show.
show.
Like, my sister knew.
Yeah,
My sister
like you don't have
knew.
to tell certain people. They're
Yeah.
like something's
My
different.
sister didn't talk about it, but she knew.
Yeah.
My stepmom, though, we had like monitoring on like the computer. We could only have certain amount of hours on the computer a day, and the phone system was so expensive, so I didn't really. My dad had me a phone, but I didn't like. Once it ran out of minutes, I'd have to ask him to like reload it, and it's just really expensive over there. So I didn't even really get to talk to my family in the States at that time because it was just so expensive. But we would have like a monitor time, and my stepmom said, "Hey, I read some of your messages on Facebook." She's like, "I just want you to be honest with me." She's like, "It's okay, like I don't judge you." She's like, "But do you like women?" And I told her, and she's like, "Well, we just love you anyways." Like, it was the first time like I felt like somebody seen me, you know, understood me, and there was no like rejection there, you know. My brothers would mess with me about it, but there was a place called GP. It's called Garden Place. So like I started like skipping school, and I'd go to this place with all like the cool kids. Like as soon as lunch would hit, I would like go eat lunch with all my school friends, and then I would skip over to this place, and we'd smoke weed and drink and do some drugs, and then I'd be back at the school by the time, you know, to get picked up.
Yeah.
And the weed over there felt like I was in a cartoon. It was potent.
Well, you said it was a lot of green.
It was really potent. I was like, I don't know if this is good. I felt like I was tripping on like acid or mushrooms or something. And New Zealand, you know, it's a big atheist country. They don't believe in God. Like I remember, like a lot of the teenagers dressed in like all black, like hair all in their face, piercings everywhere. It's where I got this lip piercing from. I was in New Zealand, so I've had a pierce for a long time. And some of the people would just be in the middle of Garden Place, like cutting their wrist. It was really strange.
Wow.
So I started cutting myself over there, and I started dressing like really dark and partying. And my dad had no idea how to handle me. I was angry. Me and him got into a big argument. I went through some of his letters and found some things that he had did, and I exposed everything in front of my brothers. And then one day it blew up, and I put like 45 holes in the wall.
This is his house.
This is his house.
So he brings you over. He's trying to love on you, rebuild relationship, but there was so much brokenness and so much pain there and so much things that needed to get healed that it was almost like you had all this wall up.
I had no idea that was going on internally
until you got stuck in the situation, and it was almost like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to do right by you.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even realize that there's so much hurt that needs to kind of be healed.
Yeah.
Before you can even move forward to rebuild.
Yeah.
Like you're rebuilding on like really broken foundation, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it's just crumbling. It's crumbling right now.
Yeah, it's crumbling. After all that happened, I remember my stepmom sent me down, and she was like, I had no idea how bad this affected you until now.
Wow.
And she's like, I'm incredibly sorry.
Wow.
She's like, at this point in time, and you know, when the kids were younger, she said, as a mother, in your mom calling defects, I had to do what was best for my family. So we left the States. She said, but now looking at what this has done, I wish I would have stayed.
How does that make you feel? Now. Maybe
Now?
not then, but like, how do you process that now?
It was a blessing. I could see where she was coming from. I've always been a person that can put myself in somebody else's shoes and try to empathize with them. And try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And when she broke that down, like I understood, and I was not angry with her. Me and her relationship got really good after that.
That's good. I just wondered like how you guys connected with her actually being transparent and like owning her part. you know?
It felt amazing.
Good.
It really did. I ended up, this is terrible, but I got in touch with a friend of mine that I used to hang out with a lot. And I was like, hey, I want to rob my dad's house. I was angry. I wanted to cause as much pain as possible to let them know how I was feeling.
Yeah.
And I got off the school bus one day. Well, I was riding the city bus. And me and some friends showed up there, and all the doors were locked. And I remember, and this was a solid front door.
You didn't have keys to get into your home?
Nope.
So hold on. Rewind a minute. So you're fighting with your dad and your stepmom. You're in New Zealand. And at this point, they kick you out?
No.
They just changed the locks on the door?
They didn't change. I think they did, because the day before I had actually kicked the front door in. So they're like, okay, we're going to change the locks. But I still lived there. They're just, they would pick us all up from school, and then we would all go home together.
So you had access to the home as long as somebody was home?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is then why you plotted, like...
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You're just angry.
I'm just angry. I do remember a cop coming in and trying to figure out why I was so angry. And I remember him sitting us all down and, you know, him, like, really asking me a lot of questions. He said, no wonder she's angry. She's in a foreign country. You abandoned her. I would be pretty angry, too. Mm-hmm. I remember him saying that. And I had to stay the night over in this foster home for a night, just until...
Everything settled.
Everything settled. And I stayed over there. And then I come back home, and I had already talked to my friend about showing up at their house when everybody was at work. So I left school, in middle school, and I caught the city bus and rode to the house. And all the doors were locked, and I planned with her. I was like, we're going to steal as much as we can, and I'm going to sell it. And I wanted to get out of the home. I didn't want to live there anymore. And I remember looking up, and I think a lot of this too, I wanted to go back home to the States, and I was on a residency. And the only way immigration will send you back home is if you break your residency. And they wouldn't send me back home. So I was like, okay, if I quit going to school and break my student visa, and if I cause a whole bunch of havoc,
they'll send me back.
Immigration will send me back home. So I got off the city bus, and all the doors were locked, and my homegirl was like, what are we gonna do? I said, y'all just stand behind me, and I kicked the door right off the hinges. And I went in there and took the laptop, took the PlayStation, took some TVs, took some other things, and then I put everything back nice and neat. Because, you know, Robert doesn't come into an empty house and steal something. They know exactly what they're going in and getting out, and I already had everything. And this is the first time, like, I had started. Actually, back in the States, I remember my mom, because she was very, I hate to back it up, but my mom, you know, struggled a lot. And she would do things to put stuff on the table, and showed me how to mark things down in the store, and would steal things. And she got in trouble, and she stopped. But I guess a mom will do what they have to do in order to put food on the table for their kids and give them a good Christmas. I know she probably beats herself up about that, and probably would not want this posted, but at the same time, it's very important, I feel as if, to talk about, because of coming from a place of understanding of, like, what a mother would do, to go to any lengths to provide for their kids.
Yeah.
Which, there's beauty in that storm, in a way, that I see.
Yeah. It's you see it that way, and I how I'm seeing it is actions matter as a parent too. So it's like, even as much as there was a good intention, like, as a parent, I could be teaching my kid things that I don't want them to even know, or how to do things, you know what I mean? But unintentionally, because of how I processed something or thought something would be best, I could also be putting that on my kids, like, generationally. Like, now I just taught you how to do something, you know what I mean? Emma was 4, and she wanted to go on a ride at Legoland. And we were literally standing in line, and you had to be 4. She was 3. You had to be 4, but she was tall. She wanted to go on this dumb little, like, horse that just kind of kicked back and forth. It just went forward, back, but there were no straps on it. The kids would have to be able to sit and hold the handles. And I was like, Emma, it's fine. Just go on it. And so we get in line, and I looked at her, and I see she hits the height requirement, but she did not hit the age requirement. She was not 4. And I looked at her and I said, listen, you have to be 4 to ride this ride, but I think you can do this. So you're going to you're 4 today, okay? You're going to be 4. And she was just looking at me like, she's 3, right? I think like 3.5 or something. And she's just looking at me, and I said, you're going to be fine. And I was with her dad. I'm like, she's 4, whatever. And I had a little bit of like, both sides of it. But then fast forward, we get up to the line, and the person working the ride goes all the way down past me to her and gets down to her level and goes, how old are you, sweetie? And because I had the prep talk, like the little pep talk with her about you're 4, she goes, 4. And she put 4 fingers up like this, like she knew. And I was like, because I taught her to lie. And I was like, oh my gosh. And all of a sudden, like all of the wrong, like started hitting me. Like, what did you just do? Like you just wanted your kid to ride this ride. And then I was like, God, please don't let her fall off that little pony. Please don't let her fall off the pony. Because I was like, that would be my consequence. I just taught my kid wrong. Again, I'm not saying that's your mom's intention, but as a parent, you don't see that you do something, right? Thinking the good of it, like, oh, it's going to make her happy, or, oh, this is a good thing. But realizing the way you got to it could have not been the right way, right? Yeah. So anyway, all of that to say, as a parent, I get it.
Yeah. So I'm in New Zealand, and when I first got down there, me and my brothers got along so good. There's videos I still have to this day that I sit there and watch and reminisce on and just laugh. And I just remember like it was yesterday being in those moments with my brothers. Mm-hmm. But when I kicked in that front door that day and walked in and saw all those things, I went and lived in a shed. And there's like, in the house, there's like cat feces and dead cats. And that house was really disgusting. But I lived in this shed, and it was in the worst part of the city that I lived in. It was called Norton. And I was selling, I bought like a whole bunch of, like we called them tailies over there. Like you would roll up tobacco and you could sell them for like $2 a tailie. And like if you have like 300 grams of tobacco, $1 a piece, you can make some money off that. And people would buy them. So that's how I survived. And my friend Bree, she actually reached out to me. She's like, please tell me where you are. Your dad showed up to my house today crying, and he's worried about you. And I wouldn't answer her. And then finally, I got in contact with him. I was tired of living in that situation. I was out there for a while. And I answered the phone, and he was crying. He was like, please come home. So I go home, and I tried to amend the situation there. And I had to completely just ruin my brother's trust. They were broken. Their lenses of how they seen me was distorted.
Yeah.
They could no longer see me as their sister. They see me as somebody that betrayed their family. And how could she do this to family? Because family doesn't do this to one another. And my dad picked me up from school, and I actually started to really like living there. And it felt like home. Like I knew everybody in my city, because people in New Zealand love Americans. Like when I went to school there and they found out there was American at school, like they would all like come up to me and try to get to know me and stuff like that. And I'm like young, I'm like 15 in a foreign country living on the streets. Like I'm just crazy.
Yeah.
They have no fear.
Yeah.
And I became atheist while I was over there. I did not believe in God anymore. I did go to church, though, at first when I got over there. But after that, and I got involved in the drugs and stuff, I quit going to church and became atheist. And my stepmom found my knife that I was cutting myself with. And she tried to, like, take all the silverware and everything out the kitchen to protect me. And I remember things like that. But my dad and my stepmom picked me up from school one day. They said, we got some really good news. And I had already been over there a year and a half. And I was like 2 weeks of getting my residency over there. And when they picked me up from school, and he's like, "You're going back home," and he's like, "But
things are going good at this point. Okay.
But I think they were completely lost.
Because you're still hurting yourself. Like, you still had, as much as things were amended, you're still struggling.
Mm-hmm. They were like letting me like go to parties and stuff like that and drink as long as I called them and told them where I was at, and because they knew that if they tried to control me, it was just worse. So like, let me just let her do what she wants to do, as long as she calls me, and we can come pick her up, and she's asking for permission, so it's okay. But yeah, they picked me up, and my dad's like, "The good news is you're going back home." He said, "But the bad news is you're leaving tomorrow." And I broke. I broke completely. I was like, man, like, I'm in a good, supportive family. I have my brothers. It feels like a family here. Going back home. Haven't been there in a year and a half. I don't even know what to, I barely speak to my family over there. I don't even know what this is going to be like.
Yeah.
So I get on the plane. My complete, like, the way I dress and everything's completely changed. Like, my mom used to, you know, compare me to all my friends and would make me wear certain clothes, and if I didn't want to wear my hair a certain way, she would beat me, like spank me, discipline me in those ways to try to make me into something that I wasn't. So it really was like I wasn't good enough. Like, it was written on my heart. That became my identity for a long time. So I get off the airplane. My mom picks me up from Savannah Airport, and I remember her being like pretty angry. And I was like, "Why are you angry?" She said, "Because you're not going to dress or be like this in my household." My dad had called my mom and told her that I was, gay. When all I wanted was welcome arms, acceptance, love. I just spent a year and a half in a foreign country. The things I had went through, probably wanted to talk to her about it. Some understanding, so it was like pushed aside. So none of that was ever dealt with.
She just addressed the symptoms and not the root causes, or even had the tools to be able to like just love you where you're at.
Yeah.
And like you said, embrace you and care for you, as broken and fragile as you were in that state.
I come back, and the goal was, me and my stepmom kind of set up a plan for when I came back. If I didn't have enough credits to go into the next grade, to go into a military school for 5.5 months, get my GED. It was a structured environment. So when I came back and I went to my high school to sign up for school again, they told me I couldn't play basketball, that I'd be too old to going into the next grade. I didn't have enough credits. That would have been another year that I was behind. And I was like, I'm not going to the school if I can't play basketball. So I dropped out. And during that process, I had met some friends. They were a lot older than me, and I would go over there like every day, drink, smoke weed, get slammed. I'm talking about slammed, like from sundown. It was smoking weed and drinking. Sometimes there was Xanax involved, and they were older. They were a lot older than me. They were like my older brothers, and then she was like my older sister. And I would actually like cry to her and tell her like I feel like my mom hates me, and things like that. And she would like comfort me. So it was like they were there in the time that I needed them. But maybe not in the most positive way.
Yeah.
It definitely wasn't in the positive way.
Yeah.
But they didn't know what they was doing,
Right. They were coping and managing the best way they knew how to live life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got really close to them, and I wound up dating this girl. I actually started dating somebody. It was my first girlfriend. We lasted for a bit. She cheated on me, and then I went to military school for 5.5 months. Got my GED. Best experience of my life. I really enjoyed it. I was going to go into the military, but I blew my ACL in there playing football. I got a lot of awards in there. It was like second place in, PT, and like first place in the shooting range, and second place in archery, and there's like 500 cadets, men and women. So it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of myself.
Yeah.
So I completed that and went back home. I stayed at home, and I ended up meeting this other gay girl. Me and her would party hop together, and we were like the same person. She was a little older than me, and she believed in Jesus. I believed in Jesus. Started believing in Jesus again, but we couldn't accept the fact that we weren't accepted for the lifestyle that we lived in. She got prescribed Adderall, so I was like popping Adderall at this time, and we would party hop. And then I got in this relationship with this girl, and I stopped drinking, I stopped drugging, and I was with her for like 3 years. Maybe 2 years, something like that. I don't know. My time frames are always all messed up. But my mom said, I will not deal with this in my household. You gotta leave. So being young, I had to leave. Maybe I was with her like a year, but it felt very long. So I moved in with her parents and her, and stayed there, and it became very toxic really quick. They ended up putting my stuff outside. I became very abusive, very angry. Some things got triggered some things in me I had no idea were on the inside of me. I beat myself up about it really bad. So when I got kicked out of their place, my mom was actually living with my sister, and they wouldn't let me come stay with them, and I had nowhere to go. So I got in touch with a friend, Rachel, and I knew her from like middle school and like 9th grade year. We were really close, and she was gay as well, and she let me come stay with her. Her grandparents lived in a shack in the back, and then there was a trailer in the front yard, and it was on this private drive. And I started staying there, and I was actually had a full-time job. I was going to school for psychology at this time. And when I moved over there, it seemed pretty okay. Like, we had, like, a good time. I would go to school. I would take her grandparents to, like, in town and, like, do things with them. And
are you dating her, or are you just friends?
No, just friends.
Okay.
Well, her sister, I started dating her sister. We started hanging out, and I realized I had some codependency issues. Like, I started, like, missing work just to stay home to see her, because she wouldn't answer the phone and stuff like that. It was really toxic. And I noticed when I would get home from work or school, like, there'd be like light bulbs and tinfoil in the trash cans. I'm like, why is there light bulbs? You know, and I'm like, oh my God, they're smoking meth. It's like a cheap crackhead way to like do dope, you know? And I was like, man, I don't want to get involved in this again. I remember the people that were shaking the bottles and stuff like that actually got arrested and stuff like that. So that kind of like stopped that for, you know, years ago. And then I would start coming home and my stuff would come up missing. Well, I seen a lot of traffic in and out, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And there was a time that I want to back up a little bit where I went to this event, this church event, this weekend event, and I was battling with suicide. And I remember telling God, you know, it was when I come back from New Zealand and stuff, and I was like, I don't believe in you, and if you're real, please reveal yourself to me. There's a guy named Jesse, and he was standing in front of me. I don't know this guy, from a different state, just come to the church camp event, and he started prophesying and telling me everything that I was going through and the things that I've been through. And I'm like, whoa, because I had a plan. I was going to go home and kill myself, and they're like, called me up to they called everybody up to the front. They had like a prayer tunnel. They had all the youth leaders do like a prayer tunnel, and they're like, if you want to receive prayer, like, come through these prayer tunnel. And I remember going through there, and I remember falling out, and this lady was praying over my belly, because, you know, what you eat will live. It says in the Bible, like, the stuff that you eat stores in the belly. So not like food, like spiritually.
Okay.
And she was praying over my belly.
Where?
Huh?
Where does it say that? Somewhere in like an Old Testament something?
Something like that. But it says, yeah, the things the spirits store in your belly. Like,
okay.
And when the lady was praying over me, I could literally feel these spirits like coming out of me, but I couldn't see them, and I was like screaming like somebody was killing me. And I had been delivered from a lot of things. And it says in the Bible, if I deliver you from these things and you turn back, then 7 times 7 of the amount that I delivered you comes back.
They find the house clean and swept up.
Yeah.
And then they come back 7 times stronger.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
And it was some,
Yeah.
So it did. Very bad.